Welcome to School's Out 80s. Oh my gosh, we need to laugh and have fun. It's the 1980s. Reagan is president. Ketchup is a vegetable. Madonna is on top of the pop charts. Michael Jackson is both king and thriller. Movies are $3. Van Halen are the monsters of rock. Russia is the enemy, and James Bond is the man. TVs are furniture, and MTV is playing all day long. This was a time of people coming together, families and friends, to have a good time and enjoy each other's company. You didn't stare at your cell phone. You told jokes, you cut up, you hugged, you danced, you celebrated life. Our show is going to take you back in time. The stories, the funny stories you don't want to forget. Life is short, so Leanne and I are here to entertain you. This show is clean, not crude. No real names are used, and we want to share our funny stories with you so you can share your funny stories with us. Again, welcome to School's Out 80s.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of School's Out 80s. Really special guest here today. Comes to us all the way from St. Louis, Missouri. His name is Todd Crabtree. Say hello, Todd.
Hello, everybody. Hello, John and Leanne. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Great to have you. Leanne, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody from Birmingham, England.
Awesome. And I'm here from Dallas, Texas. And so without further ado, we're going to kind of kick things off. And Todd Crabtree is going to share some stories with you. I want to give you a little quick background on Todd, though. So Todd and I, we were in the same fraternity at University of Missouri. We got a lot of good stories coming to you regarding some of those times that we spent at the University of Missouri together. And we've known each other 35 years. So for you youngsters out there, there's hope. And two, little more background on Todd. So Todd has spent quite a bit of his career as an executive for a very large company, and most recently has gone out on his own, and he is a residential real estate mogul. So without further ado, all the way from St. Louis, Missouri, Mr. Todd Crabtree.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate you having me on. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. There's when you mentioned you were creating an 80s theme podcast, I really got pretty stoked about that because in my mind, and anybody else can argue with me about this, the 80s were by far the quintessential decade. Everything was to excess. It was music, clothing, financial, what have you. So to be right in the wheelhouse of that, as a teenager in my formative years, going on to, through high school and college and then a young adult, nothing was better than the 1980s. And, hopefully some of these stories, some people are going to resonate with, and probably some of the younger people are going to wonder, how in the world did you even survive, through that era. But, the 80s, and I'll give you a little backdrop about myself. I grew up in a really small town called Paris, Missouri. And, we're affectionately known as the Friendly Paris. There's about 1,500 or so people in that town when I was growing up. I had a class of 200, or excuse me, a school size of 200. Our class was about 50. So, it wasn't much effort on my part to get, best dressed and most popular, because I'm only competing with, roughly 25 guys for that award, right? So, but I'll still take the title. But we had a really, it was a tight-knit community. I've heard a couple of other callers tell stories about their upbringing and really tight-knit friends. You played, neighborhood sports. You did things that, were just totally unplugged, right? When we were growing up in the 80s, there were these machines, that were located in an arcade, and you put quarters in them and fed them and played it that way versus being online with Call of Duty or what have you nowadays. So it was a glorious time. But
yes,
I really recall one summer, and our summers were generally, we had one family vacation, that we would take, and I was in the midst of an epic wiffle ball season. We had our neighborhood guys. We would meet. Every weekend was filled with wiffle ball, and we kept stats.
Wait a second, hey Todd, real quick, Leanne, you familiar with wiffle ball?
So is that a game?
It's a game, yeah. So for anybody, maybe internationally that may not know, and even domestically, wiffle ball is basically like baseball, except you're playing it with a plastic bat, and you've got a wiffle ball that has holes in it that create a baffling. So you can create some incredible spin, when you're pitching. The field is a lot like a baseball diamond, except your boundaries might be so and so's garage, or a picket fence in right field or whatever. So
in England, if anyone's wondering, it would be like rounders. We would call that rounders.
Rounders.
So, okay.
Now is that? I mean, they call baseball there, right? Or is it called rounder?
No, so we don't really play baseball in England. We have a very similar thing called rounders, and it's very similar. Yeah, but we don't really play baseball, so that's our version of it. So yeah, but while you're telling the story, I just wanted all the English people to imagine when they're playing rounders.
Okay, so we were playing. We had a spirited season of rounders going on. I happened to be leading in most of the offensive statistical categories. We were midway through summer. My folks had planned this. My dad, I'll backtrack just a little bit. My dad's so we planned a trip. There was one located in South Dakota that we were going to, and it was near Mount Rushmore. This was going to be a week-long excursion. I was immediately taken out of active participation in wiffle ball. That concerned me. So we all pile into this 1937 Ford sedan. We've got a trailer to haul all of our personal belongings behind us. It's a quasi Beverly Hillbilly-esque event, where we're just sort of everything's packed on top of us. So we start making the excursion. We pass up past St. Joe, some of John's old stomping grounds up toward Nebraska and through South Dakota. And for anybody that doesn't know South Dakota, it's a really long east to west state, and there's literally nothing on that stretch of highway. So what we had to do to entertain ourselves was listen to music. And I grew up pretty much from my first memories, the rock band Kiss was about the biggest thing going. So that wasn't the music we listened to on the way to South Dakota. This was pure on country. This was country and Western music. And I was subjected to the old school stuff by my mom and dad.
Okay.
I don't recall any offense that I did to warrant capital punishment of that kind. So I'm just only assuming it was some sort of psychological warfare that they were engaging in, trying to break me down over 400 to 500 miles, and get me to sort of embrace
That's a long way.
That country music. Absolutely. And we were driving. There's certain things across South Dakota that are, I suppose, attractions that might be viewed by some. There's a place in Mitchell, South Dakota called the Corn Palace.
Okay.
And it is literally a structure that the interior of which is made up of corn. These are corn cobs. There's mosaic patterns. There's all kinds of different things that are just fashioned out of corn. We start to see these semi tractor trailer boxes parked, off to the side of the road that say Wall Drug. And Wall Drug is apparently some sort of attraction in western South Dakota, but they literally have all these tractor trailer wagons just separated from the trucks and parked with wall drug 400 miles, wall drug 380 miles. Don't miss wall drug. We finally get out there, and wall drug is little more than a what would be now a convenience store, maybe like a Cracker Barrel type place. And the anticipation is built up from that. So just really an arduous trip out. We did see Mount Rushmore. That's the one takeaway. I was also able to enjoy, although I didn't have a real appreciation for it, the town of Sturgis, south. But on the music, these were, Dolly Parton. You've heard of her. These are the Statler brothers, people of that nature. Yeah, Kenny Rogers maybe was on there. You didn't even have anyone, John, that you would appreciate, like a Garth Brooks or some of these newer country musicians. So or the the Ronnie Millsaps of the world, or those characters.
What about John Denver?
I do love Dolly Parton, though. I think she's really funny as well. Like when you see her in interviews and stuff. Yeah.
She's one of those people that just crosses. But she crosses the cultural lines. Dolly does, absolutely. Yeah. So you've got to love Dolly. We had the Oak Ridge Boys. John Denver may have snuck across onto the country channels a little bit, and I definitely appreciate a guy like that. But for the most part, I was just being deprived of my, what I was into at the time. We had Kiss. I didn't know so much Black Sabbath at that point, but when Ozzy Osbourne came along with Blizzard of Oz, and Crazy Train just was, there you go. Yeah.
I can't do it because.
But so Ozzy came along. Van Halen was starting to really crank things up, and I had my bucket of music that I liked, and this clearly what I was being subjected to was outside of that bucket by a long shot.
Did you protest?
I think it was more brooding than protesting. I sat back with my arms folded for the most part, and and then in addition to that, I had 3 sisters that were in the car with me. So it just got worse. It just snowballed, and it was a downhill snowball building.
Hey Todd, I'm trying to picture this for the viewers and the listeners. So your dad's heading, up north, really, right? He's heading up north, and kind of the northwest area, the way you're describing it sounds like. Heading outside of St. Joe onto like the Dakotas, so in through Sturgis and such. So, so you're in the family car. So, what was the family car with your 3 sisters?
Well, it was So it was a 1937 Ford sedan that Dad had restored and rebuilt into what's called a street rod, and street rods are cars that aren't built back to their original construction. They have a lot of upgrades, the engine, the wheels. Nowadays it's commonplace for people to do cars, what they call resto mods. And so they take an older car, but then they put a modern engine in it to give it that get up and go, put, all the suspension and wheels and so forth, like you'll see on, Barrett Jackson or some of these other auction sites. So,
sure.
So this was kind of a precursor to that. Street rods had to be a certain period, being built. So they might have been like 25 or 30 years, before, the date that you showed it. Street machines, on the other hand, were more modern cars, like you'd soup up a Camaro or a Corvette or something and take it to a street machine show. So, this was a week where we built the vacation around these national level street rods events. So what I thought was going to the national show in South Dakota, which is up, you're getting pretty close to Yellowstone. If that probably gives people some frame of reference up there. We did not get there. We went through the Badlands, which is a beautiful national park. I didn't quite, as a 13 or 14-year-old at that time, didn't quite grasp the, nature's God's creation, if you will. So, again, I felt like I was just being subjected to a week outside of what I wanted to do, which was be home and be playing sports. And I thought my parents had, valued me so little to just keep pounding me with this, whatever country and western station was in range of the nearest tower. They would just, it might go to static, but then they invariably find one that was just, just meters off the dial. So
was you just like hoping that they wouldn't find that station when they lost it? You was like, please don't find that station.
I was hoping that terrestrial radio would end at that point in time. Is what I was hoping, because they may have had one or two cassette tapes, which that was a product of the 70s and early 80s, after albums kind of always had their presence. Then you had something called 8-track tapes, which almost looked like a Pop-Tart that you would put into a toaster, and you would have to listen.
Have you seen an 8-track before, Leanne? Have you seen one?
I have not seen an 8-track. No.
Leanne, you got to Google an 8-track tape. Big plastic.
Yeah, I will.
And they were, they had some issues, Leanne, because you'd be listening to a song, the song wouldn't all fit on the 8-track tape, because I think the 8-track had either 3 channels or 4 channels. And so, like, if you're listening to a long song like Stairway to Heaven, you might hear it, and it would click over to the next channel, and the rest of Stairway to Heaven.
Absolutely. And if you, so we made it back to Paris. Okay.
Sure.
Surprisingly, I had fallen clear out of the stat lines in wiffle ball. I was several spots out of first place. They had gone on and continued the season without me. I mean, I was dejected, beyond belief. The only thing I could take solace in is that I was just out of that mobile tin can that they called a car, and got back to my room and could really enjoy and appreciate, what life had to offer me as far as music was concerned. But yeah, so to kind of put a bow on it, though, a year or so later, Kiss was coming to St. Louis, and this was circa 1982. And I asked my dad, because I couldn't drive yet. I said, "Hey, Dad, Kiss is going to be in town," and all he knows of his Kiss is, they've got makeup on and they scream into the microphone and they play something. So I asked him. I said, "Hey, they got a concert. You think you could take me and 3 of my buddies down and see them?" And shockingly, he agreed to do that. And I thought, he hasn't been listening to me for 14 years, but he got it. So he invited one of his friends. They took 4 of us teenagers down there. It was at one of the downtown venues. They sat directly behind the 4 of us. There was a heavy preponderance of alternate cigarette smoke in the crowd, and I think that was the first time any of us were subjected to that. So a little bit of an eye opener for my dad, who didn't even drink beer at all. But yeah, so I think that was was kind of my first real understanding that he kind of got it.
Sure.
And then a funny story ending to it is 2 years ago, Kiss was doing their final concert in St. Louis. The same 4 guys, same 4 kids went to that concert, and although my dad had passed, his friend went with us also. So we kind of had a reunion of our own. So it was just an absolute blast. And
that's awesome.
First real 80s memory I had, and then after that, you get your car and you start creating your own memories, right?
How many hours you were in the car with your sisters, and I know some crazy stuff had to happen. So you're like 14 years old. So your sisters were like 10.
Yeah. So my sisters were 10. I had a younger sister that was probably 3 or 4 years old at the time. So when you're the oldest, all things being equal, you're going to get blamed for everything. My sisters were twins. They had each other's back. You know, I'm not going to say stories were fabricated against me because I probably earned a lot of the punishment that was doled out. But when you're on the road for that long, and and my recollection was it was somewhere between 14 and 16 hours to get to South Dakota. Yeah.
Did anybody get car sick, Todd?
Oh, when I was younger, I got car sick all the time. We had to stop. I had sort of grown out of it by then, but there was still that risk that we would always have to pull over somewhere off the side of the road. I'd have to go to a truck stop bathroom or what have you. So I would make the trip longer than it had to be just because of my motion sickness. And
I can relate.
That journey is that journey is probably the same amount of time it would take to travel the entire, like, from the one end of the UK to the other. So
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's quite a journey.
Yeah, it really is. And when you're so when you're stuck in a confined space for anywhere 12 to 16 hours, you have little to look at. It's not like driving, looking at Big Bend or going through New York City for 14 hours and you're just seeing skyscraper after skyscraper. This is relatively flat, uninspiring terrain that you're driving across through South Dakota. I'm not sure that there's enough games that you can make up, like spotting a red car or blue car, So, and also, obviously this was well before any handheld gaming devices or, iPhones or what have you. It's make your own fun.
You got like a coloring book, right? Like coloring books.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right. You've got a coloring book. And beyond that, that's about it. Whatever snacks kept you comfortable at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was a challenge riding with three females, two twin conspiring sisters, for 12 to 16 hours, take a break for those car shows, and then load in for another 10 to 12 hours to Minneapolis and another 10 hours back down to St. Louis. So it was just an unbelievable, an unbelievably arduous and torturous week or so that I endured. So,
did you pester your sisters?
Pardon me, John?
Oh, did you pester your sisters? Come on, you're in the car for like 15, 16 hours.
Endlessly. There's these little, little kind of, hand slaps and just little pestering, things that
flick them on the ear.
Flick them on the ear a little
water
bit.
droplets on their face.
There's just little noises that I would make, just little tick sounds and things like that I would engage in, my own, I guess, version of psych warfare. So but yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
And their
my brother would suck his finger to make it wet and then put it in my ear.
Oh,
to annoy me. Yeah.
Wet willy.
But
wet willy. Yeah.
all the time. And then when I would complain, he would say, "I don't know what she's talking about. She's making it up." So yeah, I know what it's like to have a big brother, and I also know what it's like to be the older one that's getting blamed for everything, because I've got younger brothers and sisters that are like 10 plus years younger than me. So if one would cry, I can totally relate that it would be my fault that someone was crying, and you'd be like, "Please don't cry, please stop crying before mom comes back, because I'm going to get into trouble if you carry on crying. I'll give you my sweet. Do you want a sweet?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Leanne, I can definitely resonate with that, because if I would, pick on them and pick at them a little bit, their way of dealing with that would be, Mom, Todd is, doing this, Todd is doing that. And then, that's when, whatever the response from Mom was, it could be just verbal, or when I was younger, it was escalated to other things, but, and some deservedly and some not. But yeah, the wet willy. How about what a classic move the wet willy is,
I know, Todd, and we got to ask Leanne. Leanne, the wet willy. Had you heard that term before? Did you know it was a wet willy?
I didn't know it was called a wet willy. I just know it was annoying, and and I just know I didn't enjoy it. So I'll have to tell my brother that's what it was called. That's what he was doing.
Maybe we've broadened the cultural backgrounds of the English people by expanding upon what truly makes America great, and that's the wet willy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Come to the United States.
My brother would do well.
We can be proud of a lot of things. Yeah, baseball and hot dogs and wet willies, right?
So I'm interested if there's anything from university that there's a really funny story that you can share where you was both there involved.
You mean from our college days?
Yeah.
The days before, Leanne, that Todd and I went to jail for a little while. I'm kidding. Yeah, before we went to prison, Leanne. No, actually, we can talk college. Todd, kick off college, and I'll join in.
Yeah, so John was there before me, but I had a few options, for college in general, but ended up, part and parcel is a fundraiser. So fraternities have a lot of philanthropic endeavors, where they raise money at these parties and give it to whatever the worthy cause is. But let's just go ahead and call it what it is. It's a good opportunity for a massive amount of people to get together and imbibe. Got there. It's an island theme party. If you can visualize, I don't know if you've watched any of these King Kong movies where they have this fortress built out of trees. So that's the perimeter of the party. The entire lot of the fraternity, the front lot, is bordered by all these trees that have been harvested from whomever's property in or around the university, and that did cause us some potential legal concerns at one point about where these trees were taken from, but we got beyond that. You enter there's this gigantic catwalk that takes you over into the fraternity house. Inside the perimeter of that is basically the dance party area out on the front lawn. Things were constructed that straight out of an architect's rendering. I mean, you had a swimming pool built out of railroad ties. I won't deny or admit that there were people that jumped from second story and cannonballed into that swimming pool. One of them may be here on the podcast, may or may not be. And loads and loads and loads of sand. I mean, sand everywhere, and you know how hard sand is to get out of a lot of things, right? But it was an amazing event. We hired a band, believe it or not, found a band from Austin, Texas. That was a funk band, and this was 80s funk. They would play Cameo, a band called Cameo. They would play Earth, Wind and Fire. They would play all these epic, some Commodores. So they were just really rallied this party to an epic level. But when their set list ended, well, that wasn't the end of the party. I mean, one of the people on our podcast here was able to coerce them, I think, up to his room, and the party did not end there, did it, John?
No, yeah, Leanne. Hey, Todd, if I could just add something to this party, Leanne, that we had, it was called the Islander, okay? And Todd's describing it, right? So you gotta, you've probably seen these structures, like Todd's saying, on King Kong, where you just have these trees that they cut all the branches off, and you just have the actual and I mean, and we're talking these are like 15, most of them are like 12 and 13-foot posts, and they're just stuck all around, and they're lashed together, and they form this amazing wall. And then, like Todd's saying, you have this catwalk, and it looks like something out of a King Kong movie. I'll actually, when we get this podcast completed, I have a picture of me sitting on top of this catwalk that Todd's talking about with a friend of mine.
I would love to see this.
Oh my God, it's so cool.
I'm excited to see this.
And so like all this leads into the fraternity house. And so you have to walk up this catwalk, and it's kind of dangerous. And you walk across it, it's all just lashed together, and you walk down, and then you get into our fraternity house. And then on the other side of this catwalk would be this band from Memphis playing. Like funky, really cool, like, music with like the bass is boom, 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 going to town. Everybody's dancing, none of the music of the day. It was just like older music that they were playing, kind of like what became like more like hip hop. But back then it was called like funk. So we were dancing to kind of like 70s / early 80s funk. And it was fun. And like Todd's saying, at the end of the deal, myself and my date ended up in my room upstairs, and so did the band. Like everybody in the band was in my room. And we were talking about this yesterday. I'm sure Todd was in my room too. There was about 40 of us, Leanne, in this little college room. And I don't even know how big this college room was. And they're just dancing just as hard as they were when we were out on the regular area dancing. And people are destructive. Like they're dancing, they're forgetting that they're in my college room. And they just take like like I have this makeshift bookshelf. It's not even really a bookshelf. It's really just this thing stuck on the wall that's holding my books. And I see somebody just take their arm and go, whoa, and slash all my books that my parents paid all this money for, most of which weren't open, to the ground.
I do recall your books, John. The spines were perfectly undamaged on your book.
Yeah, I used to get great resale value on my books.
So Todd, this must have been like, I guess all these people coming from such a small town, did you really enjoy it, or was it a little bit overwhelming?
Oh no, I embraced it pretty quickly. I think I was somebody that had trained for that for some time on a small scale level. I had no idea of the magnitude of it, but these were such great guys that they brought me in and made me feel comfortable. Now, looking back on it, just the sheer it's somewhat John talked about walking across this catwalk. So you're ferrying hundreds of kids back and forth on a structure that's assembled by college kids. And they're
never assembled anything like this, Leanne. Like,
I mean, I don't know that any of these people had construction engineering degrees. I don't. If they did, they haven't gotten them yet, right?
Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean,
because when I went to school, we had 30 children per class, and there was and there was a large amount. I mean, there must have been 30 plus classes, so I can just imagine how tight that community was that you came from. Everybody must have knew everything about everyone.
We knew, so you knew everything about everyone. And when I was back in Paris, I couldn't do anything, really get away with anything. Not that I ever tried. Maybe I did. But my grandpa lived in the town next over from me, about 20 miles. And he had what was called a police scanner. So he would set that to the police department's channel, and he would listen to what they were doing that night. And I recall one time I was coming back from a we went to a neighboring town to go cruise, our automobiles. That was a big thing back in the day. You shined your car up, You had all your favorite music ready to go, and you just roll the windows down, just break the volume knob off to the right, crank the music up, and you'd go cruise with a lot of like-minded kids. And we had some beer in the car, and on the way back we got stopped, and you poured the beer out, and then you went on home. Well, that got, my grandpa caught wind of that on his scanner. I didn't even, and home was 10 minutes, and I was already, they already knew what was going on. Like, they said, you go apologize to that policeman for inconveniencing him. And I did, because he lived, down the street from us. So, but small town, you couldn't really get away with much. Columbia, you get to that, it's like its own ecosystem that you can just, you feel like you can get away with almost anything, and just be in relative anonymity with thousands of other college kids. So you go from that environment in Paris to Columbia, where the Islander party, my recollection was well over 100 kegs of beer on hand for that first event. And there were hundreds, if not in the thousands, of kids that went in and out of there. It was one of the 2 or 3 biggest events on campus every year.
Raised a lot of money for charity too.
Absolutely, raised a lot of money for charity. As something that was well looked forward to. Everybody for the most part dressed in island theme and tropical and so forth. And
the big Todd, thing we gotta jump on that, because people that didn't grow up in the 80s, they don't know a term, and I'm going to throw it out, and I'm going to say it probably happened circa Fast Times at Ridgemont High, when it really got to be a big thing. But do you remember the term jams?
Jams, I remember somewhat, and of course Vans, I remember. What's Vans?
Jams. Let's talk about jams. So jams, Leanne, came in 2
So
links.
jams, is that like good songs? I would, if someone said to me
songs,
those are some really good jams. Yeah, I would say is that a good song? A good list of songs?
It is songs. But in the 80s, jams were very loud. When I say loud, I'm saying huge flowers, shorts that looked like you took your grandmother's curtains.
Oh,
and she lived in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And you took your grandmother's curtains.
Yeah.
And you and they came about right at the tip of your knee, or right on your knee. They were long, and then later on they came out with jams that were more like surfer jams that maybe showed this much leg. I don't know if I can get like very little, like they came almost, they were almost like pants, they were almost like shorty pants,
shorts.
They're not like short shorts, like pants that almost come to, let's see if I can, like that much, and they would be at your ankle and actually be pants, but they were loud. Like I had ones that were like orange and black and yellow. I had some really cool ones that were like blue with these huge white flowers with pink and green, and I mean, picture, and that's what people wore at the Islander party. They wore these loud Hawaiian clothes. So much fun.
Yeah, I mean, you might call them like gauchos. Gauchos are kind of a pant that goes mid shin, I guess. Longer. I guess the designers never quite figured out. Maybe they just could go all the way down and make them into pants. But they wore those. That's something that jams is something that I wore lifeguarding. So I did a lot of lifeguarding when I was in high school, predating that, and another story altogether, because lifeguarding is probably the best job you can get that makes the least amount of money and probably puts you in, maybe even in a deficit. I worked at a water park initially, and there was one that was being constructed up by this lake. So my initial job before lifeguard was to lay sod down for the water park, right? But it was about 25-30 minutes away from me. So there was 5 guys and 5 girls that were hired as lifeguards for this place. 4 of the 5 of us that worked there lived in Paris. So we all piled in my car most of the time, which was a 1978 Z28 Camaro, and it was just a really hot car. But we would go up there, we'd spend money on food and drink and all that, and literally we lost money every time we went. So, the music that you had the most popular, most played songs that we did, and we probably played on every trip, were Van Halen, Panama, and then Billy Idol, Rebel Yell. So those things were worn out on the that section of the cassette was worn out, as far as those trips go. So, but yeah, to your point, John, jams were really a thing. And then the Van shoes that Fast Times in Ridgemont High brought out, which are now wildly popular again. It's amazing how they come full circle. I haven't seen jams with that length anymore lately, but I suspect it's a matter of time. And maybe this podcast will cause some designer to, have an epiphany, a fashion epiphany, and bring those back out.
I think I'm going to go online because July 4th isn't here yet. I'm going to go online and Google jam, see if I can get me a pair for July 4th and be the true 80s dude. I'm thinking about making T-shirts with our logo for Schools Out 80s. So Leanne, you probably have seen it. Maybe I'll email it to you. But our logo for Schools Out 80s is actually a CD. Yeah. It's actually a CD.
Oh, nice.
Because CDs came out in 1982. So the CD-ROM came out in 82, or the compact disc. CD-ROM and compact disc are in the same family. But anyway, the CD, the compact disc, came out in like 1982. So that's our logo. It's a CD, compact disc with Schools Out 80s comedy story time. So we could do some really cool T-shirts with that.
Yeah.
But, But anyway, so
but I think
so that's,
Todd, you were saying that that was it lifeguarding? It's like you end up in deficit from that job. I can say, and every comedian will be able to relate to this now. This is a comedy, so you will end up in deficit for a long time. You travel such long journeys where you're paying your own petrol, and you're not getting paid. You're doing a 10-minute spot in somewhere that you had to drive 3 hours for, and you definitely end up in a deficit. So I think the best jobs do get you in that position because you just keep going back for more, don't you? You enjoy it so much.
But I'll
certainly, as you've that's it. And you spoke so fondly of your car journeys. So I think the next time I'm in my car driving a really long way away in a car full of comedians, I'll definitely appreciate that moment and the music, and because one day I guess I'll be looking back at it.
Absolutely. I think that windshield time, with friends and everything we had back then, and it was a relatively tight genre of music that we liked, and we all enjoyed it. If you didn't like that, then you weren't riding in my car. So, but yeah, it was something where, we just relished that moment. And, let's be a little bit truthful. I did say, I lost money, and I genuinely did, but I recall one day where it was overcast and the weather was iffy, and the owner said, well, we can't keep all of you. So he said, half of you, I'll let you guys decide, who wants to go. So all 5 guys just raised their hand right away. We're leaving. We're out of here. This is a unilateral decision. So, we run off to the go-kart tracks and, spend the rest of the day, just yucking it up and leave the girls there to manage whomever comes into the water park. So, it's not like we were, really dialed into the hard-earned dollar and focused. We were somewhat distractible with that. So, but yeah, what great times. My late high school and even my first year of college, I was lifeguarding, and so it was, that was a relatively easy job, and all the free sun you can get, which is just incredible. So,
hey Todd, weren't you like water park royalty back then? I mean, come on, weren't like girls coming up and saying, "Hi Todd, Here's my
I think there was,
number. Call me.
yeah, naturally, I was sporting a killer tan. There was a movie during the mid '80s called Top Gun that probably everybody on the podcast might be familiar with. So I had the whole Val Kilmer Iceman haircut going.
There you go.
My hair was just bleach blonde. Had those. I definitely had the jams going. It was
Sure.
California, Hawaii all the way, but in Paris, Missouri. So yeah, there was some good interaction with the fairer sex, that's for sure. So it was
water
pretty
park
great.
royalty. That's what I would call you guys. I mean, they're just looking at you like, oh, the lifeguards.
You kind of are, yeah. The life's in your hands. So.
At Fiji, at the Islander party.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like a 25-foot tower or 20-foot tower. That, again, what Todd's saying is pre-engineering people putting this bad boy together. And we're standing up there, Leanne. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's like you don't, like, again, it was the reality. It changed your reality. Like, you're like, I feel like I'm in, a Caribbean island. And I'm sitting here in these really loud shorts called jams. And then Todd made a comment about bands. So I wanted to tip my hat really quick to a friend of mine. So a friend of mine, because I grew up right outside of Kansas City, Missouri, he and his family were staying in a really nice hotel in Kansas City, Missouri. And the guitar player for Cheap Trick was in the elevator with my buddy.
Rick Nielsen?
Wearing Vans.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, so that's a tip to my buddy Tim. But yeah, he was in the elevator with them wearing Vans. Kind of cool. So well, that's awesome. We got to come up with one other really good story, Todd, from our college days. I told the one about the guy who evidently, I don't know how it happened, Todd, but he went from sleeping in his bed to being in the front lawn of a sorority. No idea how that happened.
Who that would have been, but
we don't have to mention any names. We'll just say the gentleman, a really good friend. He has red hair, and I'm trying to remember, but he used to be on the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh, of course, yes, yeah, I know, brother.
World famous.
Yeah.
He's in film and television now.
Yeah, he's quite an icon.
He was sleeping in his bed, and at one point he was sleeping in the sorority front lawn.
I do recall affectionately when maybe I don't recall so much, but on my 21st birthday, I went out. It's the rite of passage when you turn 21, obviously, to go to all the bars, and then. Although I'll caveat it by saying, I had gotten into bars since I was 18 because one of the fraternity brothers looked a lot like me and handed me a driver's license, so that got me into the bars.
But you look like Val Kilmer. That's what got you into the bars. They thought you were Val Kilmer.
That's what got me in there. I had the Val Kilmer / Ivan Drago from Rocky IV, haircut. So I was far more intimidating a figure than just your average 18-year-old kid. So, but 3 years went by, and I think only one time was I denied access to any of these establishments. And it was funny when I turned 21. I handed the bouncer who had been the bouncer for 3 years at this bar called the Field House my real ID, and he kind of looked at me. He's like, "Well, son of a gun." It's like so I we got in there legit. And then you go out with your friends, and they're obviously indulging you and buying you whatever drink you want, and a lot of the ones you don't, but you just go ahead and suck it up but yeah, so I turned 21.
Literally, I guess, Leanne. I guess they really sucked it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's several iconic bars in Columbia, Missouri. that we would rotate in and out of. And the primary reason is John and I I think are economists by nature. So you're looking.
I
for
thought
the
you
most
might bring up
value.
the economist situation that was going on. So Leanne, you know this already from your university studies. So economics is all about supply and demand. And also, when you think of supply and demand, you have to think of the variables of supply and demand. And one of those is price. And if you have a limited number of resources, the way you draw that limited number of resources, i.e. kids in college without very much money, is you lower price, which increases demand. So with that, Todd, tell Leanne how much we were paying back then for a pitcher of beer.
We paid $1 for a pitcher of beer.
Are you hearing that, Leanne? $1 for a pitcher of beer.
I mean, I can imagine
in 85.
If I could get a pitcher of beer for $1, I think I would be extremely drunk if I could get a pitcher of beer for $1.
You think you could commit to the habit if you could get one for $1?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, because I'm a motivational guy, and in order to be successful, you have to focus.
That's definitely the most economical for the people with large appetites. We also had, dollar pitchers. We had another establishment. I think I can say the name, Harpo's, which is an institution in Columbia that offered quarter draws. And these weren't just small red Solo cups. Quarter draws were these larger 16-ounce plastic souvenir cups that they would fill up for a quarter, and you'd leave there feeling no pain. Plus, you'd have this stack of cups, about 1.5 feet high for your efforts. And I don't know about
Leanne to hear about. So dollar pitchers, quarter draws. So if you had $5 on either night, you were probably having a good time.
You absolutely were. You felt like you were just living large. You roll in there with a $5 bill, and you felt like you were a boss.
Then on the way home, you stop off at 7-Eleven, Leanne. I don't know if you guys, but that's a convenience store in the United States, and you get a super burrito that was about $1.50, and you could never heat it properly; it would burn your tongue. But so you're eating this super burrito, which is most disgusting, filled with like the worst thing you could possibly put in your mouth. And so $5, so $6.50.
Ours would be a kebab.
What's that?
So in England, so when you come out of the bars, there would usually be an array of fish and chip shops open, and you would buy a kebab, and you'd say you don't eat a kebab or the sort of kebabs that we have sober because they're disgusting. You have them when you're really, really drunk, and it's the best thing ever. So you're coming out of the bars, and there's just huge queues, just everybody waiting for their kebab, and the taxi drivers won't let you in the taxi until you've finished your kebab because they've learnt their lesson. They know,
they don't want that smell, you're gonna make a mess. They don't want that smell in their taxi.
I don't blame them. And they can see how drunk you are, and they don't trust you, so you have to eat it first.
Okay, Leanne, one more story from the 80s that Todd and I are going to tell you, and then we want to hear your feedback on it. So we talked last episode about Halloween, and some Halloween stuff came out. So Todd and I had a friend of ours in college, and this friend of ours would dress up like, have you seen the movie Ghostbusters, Leanne?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Ghostbusters, there's this character called the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's a made-up character called the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So our brother in arms.
I think I know who it is. Yeah.
Do you? Okay. So it was in the movie Ghostbusters. So the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was the character that our friend would dress up as for Halloween. And so we would take him by car to multiple venues that had contests. And he would just win like $50, $25, $100, because all he had to do was go up there and they would clap for the best costume. And he'd walk up there and they would clap. It was a done deal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And because it was so on point with the timing, Ghostbusters came out in the early 80s, wildly popular movie. And just all the characters, the actors there at the time, in addition to the iconic Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yes.
Yeah, that individual I think he carried almost all of the Halloween costume parties, which Halloween was really a pretty revered time, with the fraternity house as well. I mean, we had a huge Halloween themed party, and people got creative. I recall one person, a friend of mine that grew up, he came as the character Gumby. And I don't know if you remember Gumby. He was portrayed by Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live.
Really, I really, really hope to be in America one time for Halloween, because I think you guys do Halloween really, really well. In England, you have to dress up as something scary, and that's the limit to it. Whereas I think in America, you can just be anything you want, can't you? And just go with it. We sort of have a structure in England, and if you wanted to be a cheerleader, you would have to be a zombie cheerleader.
Okay.
It has to be.
That's interesting.
Something scary. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of like one of my good outfits that I've.
Yes, I want to come to America and just be anything I want.
So Todd, tell us about your business.
Yeah,
your real
John,
estate business.
Thanks for asking that. So I decided to go into real estate sales, do some consulting work earlier in this year. It's kind of it really started off as a part-time thing, and for me to be able to build a bridge kind of into my post corporate life, if you will. I do think it's going to be a fruitful endeavor, and one of the things with being in a fraternity and being in a large educational institution, you meet a lot of people that become lifelong friends, just like you and I, John, have
Sure.
really forged a lifelong friendship. So there's a lot of things that can be leveraged with those friendships and sort of build out that circle of influence. But that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm in the residential sales space and do some tax consulting and just kind of broadening my overall portfolio, if you will, of services. So it's been an exciting start to this. The real estate market is just just white hot right now. So
great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's it can be said for a lot of the major cities, across the U.S. So, but thanks for giving the opportunity to talk about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Leanne, tell us about your comedy endeavors. You're out gigging right now. How's that going?
Yeah, so we're allowed to gig again now. So we wasn't allowed to gig for a long time. It was all online. So now I'm actually out there with a microphone in my hand on the stage, which is absolutely brilliant.
And you're a professional comedian, right?
To Brighton, so yeah. So and we've got our own show coming up in June, by the seaside. So we've got a 3-day show coming up, and I'm just so excited to do some real live comedy, because
Cool.
hearing audience interaction is just so much better in real life. You can't get a feel for it online. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. So we're excited. So I'll put in a quick little blurb about me. So my name's John Sales Warrior, and I've been professionally selling for 31 years, which means you as the listener, if you're wanting to learn how to professionally sell, I'm the guy that can help you. So how can I help you? I have a course on Teachable called Sales Warrior Module 1. So it has over 5.5 hours of professional sales mental skills, because that's how sales are won. It's going to happen in your mind before it happens on paper. And then to accompany that, I have a book on Amazon by the same name, Sales Warrior. And it's all about you got to put in the work and build yourself up. And as a motivational speaker too, I'll just say that how you get somewhere in life is going to happen by putting together a written plan and putting in the work. There's no magical tickets. How famous people become famous and how successful people become famous is having a good plan and working hard and smart. And with that said, it's just been wonderful today. Todd, to have you on. Leanne, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. I know it's late in England right now, and we appreciate you, jumping on the bandwagon with us.
It's 6 p.m. Yeah,
okay,
it's 6
so
p.m. So I enjoy every episode, and it's been great to meet you, Todd, and hear more stories about John as well.
Absolutely.
It's fun. I mean, Todd, what great stories about your dad, about traveling with your sisters. I know you pestered the heck out of them. You kind of didn't. I know you did. Of course you did. And that's what siblings do. And
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the love of life and everything. Leanne, again, thanks for coming on. We're going to sign off now, and we appreciate everybody listening. And please like us on Facebook, and please like us on YouTube, and please subscribe. And from St. Louis, Missouri, go ahead and say goodbye, Todd.
Goodbye, all. Thank you for joining us on this journey and continuing to support John and Leanne.
There you go. And Leanne from Birmingham, England.
Yeah, goodbye from Birmingham, England.
And from Dallas, Texas.
So long,
Thanks
John.
thanks for being here.